Hold on. Let me just start this one over and then we'll go. Okay, ready? That's pretty funny. All right. And welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. My name is Michael Sipes. You can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz. And I'm here with my partners again, Jeremy Broen.
Hi, I'm your host, Jeremy Broen. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Madman.
And Shane Manila.
At Shane is the worst on Twitter. Happy, whatever you call it, championship week. That's what it is. Happy championship week. It's already kicked off last night, Thursday night football. Some interesting takeaways from that game. But hey, happy. I hope everyone that listens to this wins a championship. Unless you're playing one of us, I hope you lose badly and that you cry yourself to sleep if you're playing us in the championship.
Speaking of that, how many fantasy bowls are you in, Jeremy?
I don't know. A few, several. You know, I cut back on leagues, so like I don't have as many dynasty leagues anymore, and I think I still made the same number of championship games. So I think I've hit the perfect number of leagues to be in. At least a half dozen championship games, and then I don't know, maybe I'm still alive in 4 toilet bowls. I lost in a couple, but yeah, still alive in those. I actually like those because normally there's something at stake there too. So yeah, still in it. I made the playoffs in a great number of my leagues, but only one listener league.
Yeah,
that kills me. 1 out of 6. What?
It's all good. What about you, Shane?
4 championship games, 1 toilet bowl, which I'm pretty excited to know that I'm in because I didn't know I was in the toilet
I've done that too. That's awesome.
Until literally like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know. Obviously, I didn't know I was in the toilet bowl. But look, I have the Fantasy Pros thing, so it's always setting lineups for me. So it's not like I had to think about it. And I just realized you get the 113. So now that I care about
that's
it,
cool.
Yeah, now that I care about it, I'm sure and know about it, I'm sure I'll lose.
That's a good prize. Sure. Now that you know.
I have a couple championship ones, including my home league, so it'll be like my 6th time. But 2 of the toilet bowls I'm in are the John Orr leagues, those IDP leagues I've told you about before, Jeremy.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because 1 toilet bowl you get the 113 if you win, which that's awesome. The other toilet bowl you get $10.
So man,
I'd rather 1,000%. I'd rather the 113 over $10.
Exactly, because I was like setting my lineups and everything, and then I went and looked at the rules because I've been in that league for like 6-7 years, whatever. And I was like, I'm pretty sure 1 doesn't get a pick. And when I looked at the rules, it says you get $10 if you win the toilet bowl. So I'm like, oh, that sucks.
That is really useless because that's like one of those like, all right, so you're just knocking $10 off my league buy-in next year. Although if it's me, there's a pretty good chance I've already bought in anyway because I've traded away my own pick and I have someone else's 2023 first. Or
right.
Like that. And I was talking with Clay last week. Clay Dynasty Pandemic Clay. Not Clay Aikens. No, we don't speak anymore. Dynasty Pandemic Clay. And he's in some weird leagues where they give you the 101 for winning the toilet bowl.
What? No, man. That's against all my...
Because you're supposed to be helping the worst team, right? Like in theory. Right?
Yes.
That's what the 101 is for. It's not
the middling team, right?
Exactly,
not the 7th team of your league, right?
So that to me, that's just weird. I think that's
wrong.
Come on,
Clay.
That's so funny.
Fundamentally wrong.
But that's funny because my father asked me about that this week when I was trying to explain to him what a toilet bowl was. And he's like, well, if it's the bottom half, but the best team in the bottom half, isn't that the middle of the league? Like the bottom team is not really gaining anything going into the toilet bowl. Their team was so bad anyways.
Right.
It's not like they're going to win the brackets of the toilet bowl,
Yeah.
So
maybe
having a better way to do it.
I love having a toilet bowl, and I know, guys, we talked about this. We're going to implement that next year in our listener leagues. We'll work together to get that done. And here's what I do in the leagues that I commission, that I try to do, and it's set up this way in most of those. I try to push for it. It's easy to do as a commissioner, but it's just total points. You reset, so the teams that don't make the regular playoffs at all, you just restart in week 1 of the playoffs when the other teams are playing. There might be some buys, but when the playoffs start for the rest of the league, the toilet bowl or the toilet series starts, and it goes all the way through to the championship week. And it's the teams with the most points advance, and the worst 2 teams drop out.
Oh,
with total
okay.
points. So you kind of have, it's kind of like reset button, and you've got a shot to pull out all the stops and try to, and I feel like that's a little bit better than head to head, but you still are really a lot of times driving it to get like teams 7 and 8, right? Or, the next two best teams, but they fight it out. And honestly, one of the worst teams is still in it as in one of my leagues, as one of the last two. One of the worst teams is still in it, is one of the last two teams. And they're fighting for, I think it's the 2. We don't do the 113, we do the 213. So it's not like it's not a huge prize. It's not worth a ton, but it's something to add to the kitty for those teams.
It's still something for value. It's something to keep the league interesting.
But not money.
We definitely need to roll out toilet bowls in the HQ leagues, but
we'll figure it out.
We'll tell you, you're definitely not getting the 101.
No.
Because look, the league, I might be alive in other toilet bowls. I don't even know. I just know this one specifically. I don't know why I looked at it. I forget why, but it's one of Ruben Almeida's leagues, Ruben's leagues. And you get the 113, and that's fine because I was like the 7th best team in the league. So that, you know what I mean? That like, that's what I deserve if I win that. Like, I don't deserve the 101.
Right.
Like, that's not fair. It's like, hey, your team was already pretty good, but guess what? Now we're going to give you the most valuable chip in the offseason.
I've never even heard of that. And you're right, because especially like we just said, usually that 6 or 7 team is the one that wins the toilet bowl. So you're getting a better pick. That doesn't make any sense. Who told you that? I forgot already.
Clay from Dynasty Pandemic, Dynasty Trades in 5.
In one of his leagues, they do that?
In one of his leagues, they do that. And it's just weird. So if anyone out there, if your leagues do that, let me know. And if you can tell me why and what the thought process is behind that, I'd love to know, because I can't find a legitimate reason as to give them the 101. But,
I don't know. I think what you were explaining about scoring the points and everything, Jeremy, that's an interesting way to do it. I know with all the listener leagues, we're going to be making some changes in the off season, and we're going to try to uniform everything though, so that whatever rule we make is going to fit through all of them. Even though like something like HQ1 is a 16 team and one of the other leagues are a 12 team, but we're still going to kind of uniform all the leagues rules across the board, but we'll talk about that in the off season.
And just with HQ1, we do need to add a 7th playoff.
Well, yeah, because with 16 teams, it's just a lot, but we'll figure all that out. And like you said, we'll save that for the off season discussions.
And then for HQ7.
And for the new league, yes. But for now, we have a lot of news. We have a lot of stuff going on. We have a lot of things going into this final week for fantasy, but it's also week 17. So it's the final regular week for the NFL as well, right?
No, there's one more.
So there's still one more. There's 18. So there's one more. Oh, geez. All right. Well, so for fantasy, it's over tonight. But before we talk about the news, though, Shane, tell everybody about Dynasty Nerds.
Hey, Dynasty Nerds. It's a wonderful site. I like them. I use them. And not just because we get their services for free, because we're an affiliate, but I even paid for their service before that. But yeah, you check out Dynasty Nerds, use promo code TradesHQ, get 15% off any of their memberships. They've got 15%. Yeah.
Wow.
That's high. That's a lot. That's more than 10%. Not quite as high as 20%, but kind of just in between there. So yeah, check out Dynasty Nerds. Look, this is Dynasty Nerd season 2, right? You got the Dynasty Film Room. That's not what they call it.
Yeah, the Prospect Film Room. That's one of my favorite things. But and their podcast, right? Shane's almost as good as this show. They're really, Matt and Garrett and Rich, good guys. We like them a lot. Great website, tools over there. I mean, honestly, the 15% discount is worth it. You got to give them a try.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a lot of news though, Shane, and it looks like you feel like Antonio Gibson is the biggest news since you put him first.
No, as usual, I didn't put things in any real order. Antonio Gibson's out this week, in case you haven't heard. But I got a feeling if you're listening to a Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast in week 17 of the NFL season, you have an idea that Antonio Gibson is out this week. But yeah, man, B-Rob. It looks like B-Rob is going to get a full load, and he's going to carry people to the title. Did we see it? I feel like
you didn't get it to shot.
It's funny how, fantasy football works. The beginning, before he was, or after he was drafted, loved him, right? Go, oh, this guy's going to come in. He's going to eat their Antonio Gibson. He's definitely going to take his job. Then he gets shot. And we're like,
God.
wow, I don't know
Yeah,
if this guy's
yeah.
ever going to play football again. And then he came back, and obviously he didn't look that great. He still doesn't look particularly that great. Like, he went 22 attempts for 58 yards last week against, again,
So
but that was against San
inefficient.
Francisco. Against San Francisco. So, that's
I
one of
think
the
he's
best
looked
run
all right.
defenses
I
in the
mean,
league.
it's bad enough he got shot for, I mean, presumably by an Antonio Gibson fantasy football owner.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Nah, it's tough sledding for him, but I'm excited to see what he does, at the end of the season like this.
So
Didn't
he's
I?
had at least 89 yards rushing in 3 of his last 4 games. And he's not getting a ton of targets. He had like 1 reception, 1 target the week before, 2, 3. Like, his high's been 3. It's not a lot of targets, but he's
Mhm.
going to have a ton of volume. You'd expect that he'd see some targets this week, and he could be a league winner this week. Him and David Blau.
Wait, before you go on to David Blau, who do you like better than this week? Brian Robinson or Josh Jacobs?
Josh Jacobs or Brian
Brian
Robinson?
Yeah, to start this week in your
Brian
fantasy.
Robinson, because Josh Jacobs is he's banged up, and I don't know, like, the Raiders have they've clearly shown you that even though they're alive for the playoff hunt, even if it's barely, they don't care since they benched Derek Carr.
Right.
Yeah, McDaniels is too smart for everybody.
So if I'm Josh, what's his name?
Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. So I go out there and tweak a toe. Like, am I really going to want to fight through for a team that's just already given up and has said, you know what, we're thinking about next year already?
Oh yeah, they are thinking about next year because neither Derek Carr nor Josh Jacobs are going to be back there in Raider Town. So
yeah, I saw a TikTok today of Raiders clothing stores and Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs jerseys on the 50% off racks. But the reason I ask you that is because, remember, last week in HQ6, I actually did a trade with the guy who's in the Fantasy Bowl this week, but he traded me Brian Robinson and a first for Josh Jacobs.
I thought that was crazy when I saw it, and I love that deal for you. But that's
But now here we are in the Fantasy Bowl, and
didn't
you're
help
saying...
himself out and gave up the first. I mean, honestly, I'm with Shane. I think, all the upside is for Brian Robinson. I mean, even before the whole thing with the Raiders imploding, it was there, but now even more so. Yeah, that trade backfired on him. And sorry it backfired, but it did. Like, you got this week's value out of that trade and the first, and probably the future value out of the running back. So I think you nailed it.
There is always a possibility that Josh Jacobs, due to the fact that there's no other options, or I shouldn't say that, excuse me, their quarterback play you would expect to be poor, could see somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 rushing attempts this week. And he could decide that, you know what, I'm just going to house this and go absolutely nuts on everyone and not tweak anything. But just given the choice, if I had the binary choice between Robinson and Jacobs, I'm going Robinson. But I'm not really.
You're optimistic still. What about Zamir White? Is he ever going to get a carry? I mean, are they ever going to use the guy?
No.
Come on.
No. Next year.
Committee guy. They'll draft another running back, so he probably won't even get a shot next year. That's a story for another day.
What about Derek Carr, though? What do you think is going to happen with him?
He'll be on another team.
No, I know that, but
I don't know what team.
Will he be a starter?
I mean, there's a couple good landing spots. So I heard this on the Athletic Pod. They brought it up, but the Jets are a team that is legitimately a good quarterback away from being an absolute legit playoff.
Let's just face it, competent quarterback away, really.
Right. They don't, and look, obviously everybody would prefer to have Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, but you can't have all those guys, right? Like, not everyone gets one of those. That's not how it works.
Not everyone gets one. Some of you get Cole for Christmas.
Yeah. Some of you end up with Zach Wilson and Mike White, where, you know what, if we could add Derek Carr to this room, that would be a significant upgrade to what they have there. And I would love that for their weapons. So that's one place I wouldn't mind seeing him land, but we got a lot of time, a lot of other moving pieces and
there are so many teams too, guys that need a competent quarterback. I mean, really, then the aging vets, the Matt Ryans, the Tom Brady's all over the league. I mean, a lot of teams would like to have a Derek Carr, a A
Yeah,
locker
and
room
that's
guy, not a problem off the field. I mean, for crying out loud, he's a family guy. He goes to church. I mean, like he does, that's like, wouldn't you want that as a captain of your team? If, he's not, he's doing more than just, keeping the chains moving. He does a little bit more than that, but he's better than anything the Jets have. So I'm with you there, Shane, but I honestly think he will be a starter. I mean, I think he has to be a starter in this league right now until we get more quarterbacks.
So let's say Tom Brady picks up shop and goes out to Vegas. Derek Carr in Tampa.
That would be funny.
Wouldn't be a bad move.
No.
Derek Carr in Miami, if Tua's concussions are...
Dude, that guy's done.
3 concussions in...
You can't keep having those, right?
6 months is not great. At least 3 that we know of. So, there's a lot of moving pieces with the quarterback position this year.
Would you like Derek Carr down there in Tampa, Mike? And I mean, honestly, that's the only way Josh McDaniels is going to ever win anything is with Tom Brady. I really don't think he's going to do anything otherwise.
Do you really think Tom Brady is going to go over there? I know that there's been talk, but
no.
It's kind of
one of those things that I could see as an option.
Good fit.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously a good fit. That's where Josh McDaniels was successful with that offense, and Tom Brady was so successful in it. So it's a good match. I don't think it will happen, but I mean, I think that would be better for everyone concerned if it did. Just trade those 2 quarterbacks
just swap
to the other offenses. Yeah.
What about you, Shane, with Gardner Minshew? Do you think he's going to start somewhere, or is he going to still be your backup next year?
I think he'll probably sign somewhere where he thinks he can compete for a starting gig. He knows that's not Philadelphia. I mean,
right?
There's no way he could ever start in Philadelphia unless something just absolutely horrendous happened to Jalen Hurts. So I think he'll probably end up signing somewhere else because I think he's still fairly young. He's just coming off it'll be off his first rookie contract. So he's going to be 25, 26, whatever, something like that. I'm sure he thinks he's got some starting capabilities in him.
Well,
so
honestly,
if I'm him,
go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if I'm him, I'm probably going to try to find, a spot somewhere that I think I might be able to compete.
Yeah, that makes the most sense too. Like he's definitely, and he's a competitor. You guys probably read about what he did in the off season, right? Living behind the facility in an RV and just dedicating himself. He's obviously a dedicated guy. He's all about football. He needs to be on a team and be a backup in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there's a lot of bad backups in the NFL. It seems like when you look around. A funny exercise I think it would be cool to do on this show. Maybe we save it for the patron episode just for shits and giggles. Would be like to go. Gardner Minshew and just go down the list of quarterbacks. Like, would you rather have Gardner Minshew or the current starter for a particular team? And I mean, you're going to probably come up with a number of names that you'd rather have. I would rather have Gardner Minshew than the current starting quarterback. I mean,
Zach Wilson,
10 teams or something. Yes, there you go. There's number 1, maybe.
It definitely seems like there's a lot of good landing spots for players because even the list that Shane mentioned a few minutes ago of not everybody can have Mahomes and Josh Allen, blah, blah, there's 32 teams. And Shane, you mentioned like 6 players, So, I mean, there's a lot of teams that could use something better, I guess, even somebody like Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant, and then he's like playing so well and people are all excited. I'm not saying that he's the greatest quarterback, but people get excited by anybody that seems to be able to play the position.
I mean, seems to be able to. How long have we been thinking hey, Drew Lock could possibly be a starter? Brock Purdy or Drew Lock? You're going to say Brock Purdy. There's no way you're going Drew Lock. And there's so many examples of those guys across the league that maybe they're not even capable of backups. But I just think it would be fun. And that's, we'll talk about that soon, I think. But that's why Shane and I were talking about quarterbacks. On this show in the past, I talked about how before this season, I think, or early this season, how it seems like there just aren't enough quarterbacks anymore. Like we used to have it made and we were spoiled. We had so many good starting quarterbacks. And now, like Shane pointed out, you have this top 6 quarterback ones and then a bigger like middle tier, I think his data will show. But it's like, that's an exercise we need to continually do is at the quarterback position, keep evaluating and reevaluating it until we have an influx, like another great class of quarterbacks, because we haven't had one in a long time.
No, and it seems more so this year, whether we say that or not, but like there's a lot of my Superflex teams that I'm only starting one quarterback. I lost so many. I mean, even Jameis Winston, after a couple weeks, he played good. He got hurt, and then they never let him play again. And then all of a sudden, like across the board, I don't have him as one of my quarterbacks. I have Derek Carr in a bunch of teams. Now, all of a sudden, they're like, I'm glad I didn't need him for playoff times, But I did in one of my fantasy bowls, I have Tua. And now it looks like I don't get Tua this week. So I'm going back to Tom Brady, though, in that league because that's my best option. It's either Tom Brady or Teddy Bridgewater,
Yeah. And look, so, I mean, we're already on that topic. So Jeremy and I were talking because you were making us wait because apparently you had a social life.
Some family thing, whatever.
A family holiday thing I had to do. Shut up.
So, yeah. So there's definitely, and last year, it's funny that I want to say the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks or so. Let me just go back to 2021 real quick. Sorry. I know that's great radio. Fantasy data. Stop trying to. No one cares about the postseason. Why would you bring up the postseason? And this isn't 6-point passing touchdowns. There was this clump of like Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, all 25 points. But even below that, you still had several quarterbacks that were at 25, 24, 24, 24, 24. Like it was the top leading scorers were down a little bit compared to this year. Mm-hmm. If you look at this year, the points per game leader is Pat Mahomes at 30.1. Then you got Jalen Hurts at 29.5 and Josh Allen at 29.2. So it was a little below that, but as a whole, as a group, the top 12 scored at a higher rate.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of guys at 20, like between 20 and 25 points. And then this year, we have this weird little, like there's 4 high scorers. You got Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts.
Real close together too. Like not even a full point apart between the 3 of them.
Well, no, there's
per game.
No. Mahomes is actually 30.1. He's actually smashing everyone except for Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts.
Oh, that's what I mean. Like they're not even a full point behind though. Like
there's
29.5 and 29.
Yeah.
Those 3 are real close together as
the top 3 are all over 29 points, all within a point of scoring. Then you got Burrow at 27 points per game. And then the quarterback 5 drops between Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. There's a 5-point scoring difference, 5 points a game.
Yeah, that's a lot over, 16 games, 17 games.
The last time I looked, I was just looking because of the quarterbacks I needed to start last week. There's a lot of them that are averaging in the teens. Like the 2 or 3 games they have over 20 and then the rest are teens. Like it seems like that big chunk of them are way down from last year. And there's people losing their jobs left and right. Nobody wants freaking Russell Wilson on their team. Nobody. What?
Yeah, Daniel Jones is way down there.
Well, too. I know, but that's what I'm saying. That position seems like the entire position went off a cliff this year.
That's what I'm saying. And Geno Smith is like at 8, right, at points per game. Kirk Cousins at 9. The data that Shane got from Fantasy Data. Way down the list. Justin Herbert, weird season there, but he's like 15th on the list. And like you said, in the teens, 19.1 per game, right above Daniel Jones.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It sucks, guys. I mean, Herbert's a really great prospect, a great quarterback, and he can't throw for 400 yards every game, apparently.
Yeah, and you talked about it off air, but like he doesn't, and he has the ability, but he doesn't really give you that rushing yards. He has 146 rushing yards, which
he has the ability.
Useless.
We know that, and he can do it, but he's almost useless in that capacity. He just throws it.
You look at the top 3 guys, right? So you either need to be a cyborg like Pat Mahomes and throw for 4,700 yards and add another 300 rushing yards, or you need to be Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and go, all right, well, I guess I'm going to run for 750 yards too to add to my passing. But so the top 4, like I said, all over 27 points a game. Then the next 7 quarterbacks all scored between 22.5 and 21.3 fantasy points a game.
Wait,
they're virtually
equal.
7? They're just equal.
The next 7. So the quarterback 5 through 6. Hold on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
11.
11.
It's like a big tier, right? It's like you have
Yeah.
a top tier of 3 guys, and then you have like another tier of like sort of the quarterback 1s or 1Bs, 1Cs, whatever. Quarterback 2 might start at that point in scoring compared to the past, but you have like another 12 of just meh. I mean, they're all kind of the same. It doesn't matter which one you have.
Yeah, it's literally if you would have traded Lamar Jackson at the beginning of the year for Justin Fields and a third, people would have wanted to
Called you
throw things at you.
Right.
Crazy.
And guess what? Justin Fields is right behind him in scoring, and you'd have a free third.
But wait, let me ask you this then. So you're saying 11. There's 11 players that are averaging over 20 points. So that's not even a full.
Well, there's actually 12. Well, there's actually 13.
13 that have over 20 points.
Okay, so then there's 13 that have over 20. Because I was going to say that's not even a full round or a full amount of play. Like we're talking about super flex leagues that if it's a minimum of 12 owners in the league, not everybody's gonna. We already know not everybody's gonna have 2 good quarterbacks, but it's even exponentially harder for some teams, especially like Jeremy, who has multiple quarterbacks on a lot of his teams. You're going to have teams there that are starting 2 quarterbacks that aren't even worth,
I'm starting 2 quarterbacks that are barely better than the one. And here's the thing, Jared Goff is like, and say what you want about Jared Goff. The point is that he's the third on this list with fantasy points per game. He's at 13 at 20 points, kind of holding up the rear of the players that have scored at least 20 points. But that's 33% less points than Patrick Mahomes at number 1.
Yeah,
he's right there being a quarterback 1-ish with Kyler Murray, but he's scoring 33% fewer fantasy points per game at 20.2 compared to 30.1. That's a huge over 17 games. What is that? 10 points, 170 points a year.
Yeah, I mean,
that's insane.
Another fun way to look at it is just putting names together because it's fun.
Right.
But yeah, so if you were like, oh, I'm set, I got Kyler Murray this year. And I Kyler Murray scored, let's see, 0.6 fantasy points per game more.
That's
than
it?
Jared Goff.
Oh,
more than Jared Goff. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you remember what happened to me in HQ6? My team was really good, and I made it all the way to playoffs. And then I had Justin Herbert and Tua against the guy who had it was Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, I think. Like both of his guys scored 45 points each, and my 2 quarterbacks scored in the teens. Justin Herbert didn't even throw a touchdown.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, as I had him in a few leagues, and Justin Herbert shit all over us in DFB.
Yeah,
gave us a good 5.32 fantasy points that week. Thank you, Justin. You beautiful loser, you. But yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert's had a down year, but like Jeremy was saying, he's still a great quarterback, right? It's dynasty, so you're going to be buying in. It's just funny. You look at the scoring, like if you would have went into this year and said, I got Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray, I'm going to just absolutely destroy people. No, you did slightly better than someone that had like Jared Goff and Derek Carr. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if you were to just put those up, you put the 2 up against those 4 quarterbacks on a sheet of paper, you'd go, oh my God, I'm going to destroy people with these 2. Now, I still think that's the way to go. Obviously, I'm going to continue to build Superflex through what I believe to be high-end quarterbacks. It's going to be Jalen Hurts. It's going to be Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, who was the QB6 on the year, according to fantasy data, 6-point passing touchdown scoring.
Well, I could definitely tell this is going to be conversations that we're going to have in the offseason going into the draft, especially this year. People are going to be looking at those rookie quarterbacks because there's a lot of teams, especially in Superflex leagues, that are really hurting for, that position.
And, and this kind of speaks to why we were ready to overdraft Malik Willis before the NFL told us that he wasn't any good. And why and then the NFL came back again and said, guess what? We're starting Josh Dobbs. Malik Willis. That's how
we just got him from the Browns, and we're still going to start him over this guy. But you know what? That's how we are on this show, though. We doubled down in one league. It wasn't enough to get Malik Willis at 101. We also got Corral later in the. I mean, because that's how we feel about the quarterback position on this.
But we didn't even get a chance with Corral. He was been on IR.
I like him. I think he's going to be fine. I do. I really do.
We ended up with Justin Fields and
a trade.
And he wasn't. Our QB2 isn't what hurt us. It was our QB1 for once. It was Justin Herbert. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Whatever.
and I think this is probably like Anthony Richardson. I am scared to death of him. Just I can't imagine giving up a top 5 draft pick for him. I know the upside's insane because of the physical ability, but the more I think about it, and I'm hoping again that the NFL just does this for us, and they're like, no, he gets drafted in the 3rd round, and I go, okay, I don't have to.
We're not Malik Willising him in the DFB this year.
No.
There's no way.
Well,
Man,
first of all, we don't have the 101 this year.
No,
though. We had the 101 last time.
if he gets drafted in the 1st round, oh man, I'm gonna do everything I can in my power not to draft that guy unless it's like 110, 111. I'm not wasting a draft first.
Right, exactly. Well, Mike, you realize we traded up specifically to get the 101, specifically to draft Willis. I'm saying we are not doing that for Richardson. No way, no how.
And every time you bring it up, I always have to do the disclaimer that, guys, this was a pre-draft rookie draft. In that league, we draft players before the NFL does. So,
man, but I'll tell you what, the tea leaves were out there. The tea leaves were out there.
They were.
I am on high alert. If those tea leaves and the same talk gets spread around Anthony Richardson, I'm going to be like, no.
Not falling for that.
And Will Levis, apparently the league likes him a lot better than fantasy. He might end up being the QB1 of the draft from what everyone's saying. But yeah, I mean, look, we're going to have quarterbacks to pick. You're also going to have Bryce Young and CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
And those guys I'm much more comfortable drafting early, top half of the draft, even assuming the draft capital.
But let me ask Jeremy, especially as the college guy here, if we're in such a bad situation in the NFL with quarterbacks, and we're already talking about these backup ones and these cut guys showing up somewhere and starting, are any of the rookie kids, other than the ones, that you two just mentioned, like, are any of them a potential, even if they do get drafted, that you might want to start them over the Gardner Minshews and the Derek Carrs and all that stuff?
100%, and the league's going to invest in them, like they normally do. I know last year was an anomaly with all those quarterbacks, and none of them were taken high outside of Kenny Pickett. But yeah, they're even more so because of the situation we were just talking about. Those guys are still going to get their chances. I mean, this is a league that drafted Johnny Manziel at the top of the draft, right? Which I never even got that crazy in any of my fantasy football thoughts about a quarterback. Yet he was drafted up there, and maybe that was one stupid team, but drafting him as highly as they did, and Baker Mayfield #1 overall, right? But Manziel was, he should have never been a 1st-round pick. But these teams, NFL teams, of course, you guys see it. They want the talent. They want those quarterbacks. So the guys that Shane's talking about, I won't be surprised if all of them end up being, 1st-round picks or top of the 2nd even. But I'm not necessarily on the Will Levis train. I don't know if I think he's the best in the league, but we've been screwed before by drafting the guys that we thought were better, right? Better potential, better athletes. I think the league has a problem with quarterbacks right now, and that's why I kind of had it on here. I don't know what the solution is. Like, I'm just going to draft with my rookie picks based on what the NFL does. I mean, that's the biggest telltale sign, right? We saw it last year. Kenny Pickett was the guy. So I didn't think that.
I'm not going to do a lot of startups this year, right? I'm only going to do HQ7 and whatever
HQ8,
whatever other listener leagues we start for dynasty trades in 5 as well. And it's the knee-jerk reaction is if you're sitting at 112, 113, 201 to go, all right, well, let me just take the 13th best quarterback off the board, right? Like, that's just a knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
And I'm not saying this is definitely my strategy. I'm just thinking it through. I'm thinking, like, I don't know, man. This might be a year where I go, let me just move back. Because I don't want to pay, QB 9 prices for the QB 14 when I could have just bought the QB 16 at, 4 rounds later.
Yeah.
Right.
So this might be a year where, like, it's going to be like running back, where obviously, you get an anchor running back on your roster and you're like, that's fine, just one of them. I might start doing that with Superflex. I don't know. I got to see how it plays out. You know what I mean? How it feels when I start getting the startups. But right now I'm thinking I get that anchor QB, and then I'm moving right back up again into the 1st round, at like 106. You know what I mean? And getting it's got to be one of the top 8 guys for me, or I might just trade back. So I don't know. It's going to be fun.
Until you see that the NFL drafted 4 quarterbacks in like the top 8 picks, and then you're gonna be like, you know what? I got to move up and get one of these quarterbacks. The NFL loves these guys, and now I do too.
I'm never gonna
follow suit.
I'll say this in the startup drafts. I'm never going to fall for that again.
Because you did.
We were burned, yeah.
Right? And here's the fun part about it is I put all that capital into getting Trevor Lawrence. He bombs. I try to get out of him, which I did in a couple leagues. In one league specifically, I ended up getting out of him from Malik Willis again before the draft.
Oh, dude, really?
And then at the end of this year, you go, wait a minute, Trevor Lawrence is the QB7, and maybe I should have just
waited.
You should have held on to him. Like, you spent so much to get him in the first place, man. I remember that. You were all over that player.
I could have just said, you know what? I'm not going to pay up for a rookie quarterback that I have no idea what's going to happen. Exactly. And that's what I'm more likely to do. Again, rookie drafts is different. You know, you used to pick.
Yeah, no, you're talking about startups.
But in startups, I don't think I could ever do that to myself again.
Not in a startup. I know you won't.
And it's kind of funny if you think about it, because over time, they just expect so much to come from the rookies in their very starting year. You expect them now to be this amazing thing. And of all positions to take that risk, quarterback is probably the worst one to take that risk, because like you said, if he bombs, there's not enough out there, especially in a super flex when people are getting 2 of them. There's not enough out there. Does Shane remember that we're videoing right now? Because probably not.
I'm going to leave in a second too. That's funny.
There's not enough out there to be able to take that risk, you know? And then when it doesn't work, as opposed to taking the risk on a running back or a wide receiver, that's very
high reward, high risk.
Yeah.
Comparatively with the quarterback position. Yeah. You have to get that right. And plus just burning a high end pick and being wrong. Right. You know,
well, Shane, I'm sorry. Jeremy just said he was going to walk away for a second. So if he's going to walk away for a second, Shane, why don't you do your Twitter bits? I saw you put Twitter bits on the show sheet.
I just got one Twitter bit this week. And, you know, why I was thinking about it is I was going up against Zeke in a championship game. And I was annoyed that he put up 14 points against me last night. Mostly, obviously, off a rushing touchdown. And I did say this in the group me chat for HQ patrons. And if you're not an HQ patron, you need to become one because, well, they're better than you. Unless you are one, then you're awesome. But if you're not, then you're not as awesome. So you should become a patron. Anywho, I was saying how, like, I want to set up a fantasy league where, like, you lose points if you're an inefficient running back. Yeah. Literally because of Zeke. So, I was just looking at his stats last night. And so he's going to be, he's going to end up in the top 12 in rushing attempts, top 5 in rushing touchdowns, and he's going to be a running back 2 because he's so inefficient. Do you know how hard that is to get that much volume and touchdowns and still not be a running back 1?
Yeah, it's funny.
Is awful.
Was it I think it was either the beginning of last year or the beginning of the year before, the first couple of games. Wasn't Mike Evans like somebody who had the most touchdowns with the least amount of yards in a bunch of games?
Something ridiculous like that. Yeah,
like Tom Brady kept
nothing but scoring touchdowns. Yeah,
from like the 2-yard line or whatever. Like Tom Brady kept throwing them to him, dumping passes to him. So you're saying that he had a whole bunch of touchdowns and a whole bunch of attempts, but other than the touchdown parts, he was doing nothing with any of those attempts.
Yeah. And
he only ran for the touchdowns. I know. He's talking about Zeke.
Yes,
and I don't care if people like this stat or not. Yards per attempt. He's a career low 3.9 yards per attempt. Wow. Significantly. I mean, his next closest year, he was 4.0 back in 2020.
Yeah, that's anti-Zeke. That's not why you drafted the guy.
17 receptions this year for 92 yards. Also, guess what? Career lows. Yards per reception, 5.4, career low. The only place that he's excelling, literally two places, he's excelling is he's physically active and able to take the football from the quarterback because he's among the league leaders in that in touch and rushing attempts and scoring touchdowns, man. He's right up there. He's tied for his second most rushing touchdowns in his career, 12. He's done that a couple times now. Had 15 one year. I don't know what you do with him, to be honest with you. I really don't. He's 27, or he was 27 at the start of this year, so he'll be 28 next year. I don't know. I
know what you do with
no
him.
idea what I do with him.
I thought that he was. Go ahead, Mike. You go first, buddy. I stepped all over you.
No, it's fine. I was going to ask you because I know you have him, and I know that you were already attempting to do something. So I was going to ask you, what are you going to do with him?
I mean, Shane, basically, I mean, what we're talking about now is what I think a lot of fantasy football owners have thought for a while, that Zeke was done. And I didn't want to jump on that bandwagon because I know what that guy can be. And it seemed like he still had a lot in the tank with the pass catching, with the PPR points, with the yardage and touchdowns off the pass, from the pass. And then well, really any plays off tackle, anything inside. He was good inside, outside. He wasn't Saquon Barkley. He wasn't a liability inside. He also could catch the ball. So he's a well-rounded back, and they used him a ton. But, he's volume dependent, but some of Shane's stats probably, showed you that, yeah, okay, he's still going to be a running back too because of volume, but that he's not very good. Is he always going to get that volume? I don't know. I've tried to trade him everywhere that I own him. When he was hot, I tried to do it. Now I still have him. I think you guys know, in a couple of the HQ leagues, and he's on my trade bait. And I've entertained some deals, and I almost made a deal happen with I think the leader in HQ6. Is it Jack? I think I almost made a deal where I was going to move Zeke and a couple other pieces for Derrick Henry and a pick. And it's really not going forward. It's kind of going lateral, right? Henry, Zeke. I mean, they're both older running backs. But I felt like I might be able to trade Henry for more. So I almost did it, but I wasn't able to pull the trigger on that before the trade was revoked, and we never sealed the deal. But my point is that, yeah, you're trading Zeke away. I don't think his situation is going to get any better. He's going to be 28 going on 29. He's already played in the league for how many years? He was young coming in. I think he's washed.
What are you going to get for him, though? When you just said you're going to trade him away, what are you looking to get for him?
A pick, probably. I mean, a pick. I was trying very hard to get when he was hot, at least a second round pick. I couldn't do it. So I'd love to get more than a third. Have you moved him anywhere? Shane, did you even own him?
I didn't own him anywhere. No,
yeah,
I didn't have him on my team.
I had him in one league.
Yeah. Well, what would you?
Yeah, I mean, for a running back too, on volume alone, I mean, you're better off just holding on to him.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
You're better off just holding on to them and just.
And that's pretty much what I've got.
Yeah, and running them into the ground. Meanwhile, another guy that's actually older than him going the other way, Derrick Henry.
It really is almost going the other way. Yeah.
That dude ran for 1,400 rushing yards this year.
It's crazy.
He's just and 380 receiving yards, career high in receiving yards.
And Henry does not look his age. If you ever see him now, he still looks like a freaking kid, man. I feel like he's Adrian Peterson. Remember, they talked about how he had like the knees of a teenager or something when he had his ACL surgeries, and he came back and he was almost as good as ever. Henry's like that guy that doesn't get older. He's like discovered the fountain of youth. So I would be happy with getting Henry for Zeke. I truly would.
Oh my God, you'd have to add to him. Yeah, I'll say this, and I've said this before. I've given up on Derrick Henry. I don't care.
Giving up on him.
He's an outlier. You know what I mean? You know me, running backs. I'm like 26. Get out, dude. I will give a late first for him. In competing.
Yeah, he's a unicorn, just like Travis Kelce. I feel like I got away from him too soon. I got rid of him.
And I mean in the offseason
and during the season, in
the offseason, not like this week for a championship game. I mean, like in the offseason, if I have a team that I think is built to contend, I will give up a late first for Derrick Henry and not even think twice.
But the deal that Jeremy was talking about was a playoff thing where the guy just wants to win this week and wasn't going to be able to play Derrick Henry, so that's why he was looking to do something.
Bummed that I couldn't make that happen, and I'm with you, Shane. I agree. I mean, there are certain players at positions where they're good beyond their expiration date, even if we suspecting otherwise. Yeah.
What do you think about
Henry.
Dalvin? Because the same deal you were talking about, he was coming at me for Dalvin with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, because you know why, Mike? Because
he
I know you
wanted to
love
win this
Dalvin
week.
Cook, and I love Dalvin Cook. His brother, he's pretty cool too. Not as good, but I just making a joke for Shane. Dalvin Cook, dude, isn't he always like banged up? Doesn't he always have something like, oh, my thigh? And he's a badass, but like he's got a thigh bruise or some soft tissue. He's literally always Derrick Henry's. He gets hurt every season, but he's not always hurt.
Right. And he doesn't see, like, if you look at his scores, I don't remember off the top of my head now, but I don't think he had any under 20. Did he?
Who's that?
Derrick Henry.
I don't have his scores up, but
I don't know how many teen scores he had this year.
He just smashed all year. But
yeah,
I'll tell you what, Dalvin Cook's another guy. Like we're just randomly jumping onto this too, but old running backs, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry. I'm buying all in the offseason.
Yeah.
Again, relative to cost.
That is anti-Shane talk now. This is the most anti-Shane talk I've ever heard. In fact, I'm bummed that I trade Derrick Henry in one of our listeners for a first-round pick. But yeah,
I've circled in this old running backs in this offseason in my head going back to last year. I just knew like this is going to be the time with all the young bloods coming into the league. Like it's going to push their value down, and as it should. But you know what? It's a 1-year proposition. I'm fine with giving up a late first-round pick for a running back that I think could give me between 15 and 20 points a week.
Well, yeah, and especially with the fact that the quarterback position is hurting so bad. Most of our Superflex leagues you only have to start one quarterback. You don't have to start two. So if you're getting some running backs that are score you 20 points, like you just said, it's better to stick that in than the Derek Carrs and the 10-point quarterback guys.
So Shane definitely would you also prefer Henry over Dalvin Cook? So yes. I mean, it's clearly Derrick Henry over Dalvin Cook over Ezekiel Elliott, and they're all pretty much in the same age range at 27, 28. Sort of.
And Mixon in there, Kamara.
I never liked Mixon. I'm not a Joe Mixon fan. He's so overrated.
I like them at what I perceive to be their cost. Now, obviously, if we go into the offseason and people are like, I want the 105 for Joe Mixon, I'm going to be like, well, never mind.
He used to be a value where you drafted him in startups for sure. But I think people want too much for him if you're trying to acquire. And I'm just, he's down the list for me. I almost want Zeke before Joe Mixon. And that's saying a lot because I think Zeke is done.
It'll be a lot cheaper.
And what about your boy, Nick Chubb?
Dude, the Nick Chubb fantasy points, I think we all know is not a Nick Chubb problem. We've seen Nick Chubb. I mean, that dude is a monster. He's another one of those, much like Derrick Henry, where he just keeps going and he could do more. He could win games for that stupid Cleveland team. They stop feeding him the ball and they start passing. They really didn't rely on him like I think a team should. It's a Cleveland Browns problem, not a Nick Chubb problem. I think you are fine. Nick Chubb's a guy I would buy, especially now that he's a little bit down the second half of the season with fantasy points, like after the bye week.
Yeah.
The Browns bye week. He just like, where's Nick Chubb? Where's Waldo? He dropped off. But the Browns are the Browns, man. You can't blame Nick Chubb for that. So I think he's even more so, a little bit younger, but even more so than those other guys. He's a buy for me. Like Shane said, in the right situation, I wouldn't mind going after Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook. The others we talked about, I won't touch them.
Yeah.
But dude, Dalvin Cook, Mike, he's one of your favorite players. That guy, I love watching him run because not only is he fast and quick but he's a badass. He's tough. I mean, he hits people, but him getting hurt makes him down the list a little bit farther for me. So Chubb, Henry, Cook, that order probably always.
That was weird. I just heard somebody say something and there's nobody here. Maybe I don't know. That's why I just like spun my head around. Listen, we're 50 minutes into this. Shane's scared now that I'm hearing voices. Do you want to throw one of these trades out there really quick, a trade alert before we wrap up? And then
fuck them people. You know what? We'll do trade alert. We'll do one that's pending, that's sitting out there.
Trade alert.
A trade alert pending?
Pending. It's a very rare trade that could happen.
Is it a trade that you sent out and you didn't revoke yet, and the other guy just kind of slept on it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I hate that guy.
there's I have a rare chance to make a trade with a dynasty madman.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
Yes, I
what are you
forgot about
talking
this.
about? You throw trades out all the time and you wait for an answer. That's not rare.
He's
But
had
you're
some good
saying it's
made some
with Jeremy. Oh, okay.
yeah,
So
he's made some good
interesting.
offers.
What
No.
is it? And let's see if you can nudge Jeremy one way or the other.
So I have
Suck.
offered George Pickens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You guys know, I think,
Wait,
how
hold
I
on.
feel about that guy, that
Yeah.
player.
George Pickens and Christian Watson
Uh-huh.
for the 104 and the 201. And this is a what, 14 team league?
Yeah, our 14 teamer in HQ 6. Yeah. And so it's my first rounder, which is going to be the 104, I believe, and your second rounder that I traded from someone else, I think, or maybe it was from you. 201 is what it's going to be because you have the 101 for those two players, Mike. So the 104 and the 201, which are, God, those are good picks.
So it's the fourth pick overall, and is that a 14 team league?
Yeah. So
it's the 15th. So it's the fourth pick and the 15th pick.
Okay. Yeah, that's how math works. Whatever.
Yeah.
You said it.
It's the fourth best.
I can add.
But it's the fourth best player.
Oh, it's a 12 teamer, right?
15th best player for those two guys. And
Is it a 14 teamer?
You just said yes when I said it. So
it depends on if it's HQ5 or HQ6. We have too many leagues.
All right, I'm gonna say, especially with Jeremy, and if Jeremy
12.
doesn't,
it's 12 teams.
It's a 12. Okay, so then it's the fourth and the 13th best player.
Yes.
So if Jeremy's team needs a quarterback, which he said some of his teams he does, he's going to hold on to that 4 no matter what those two players, whether those two players did good or not. If Jeremy's team has good quarterbacks and needs wide receivers, then I would be fine making that trade if I was Jeremy to get the wide receivers. But I think Jeremy's going to hold on to the 104 because he's going to need a quarterback.
Remember our conversation earlier? Go ahead and Shane.
He's got Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr,
Gardner Minshew, guys we talked about earlier.
Then he's not going to do it.
Just an absolute hodgepodge of just fucking terrible.
Yeah, he's not going to do it.
Sam Howell and Desmond Ritter on the taxi squad, and say what you want. Those guys could develop, but yeah, I don't have any guys to rely on.
I definitely think they will for the purposes of this conversation.
Yeah. We made it all the way to the 50s before we got some fucks, but
we did too. And it wasn't from me.
Yeah, it was the 2 from Shane. But yeah, no, he's not going to do it, and especially after you said those two quarterbacks, I'd rather keep the 104. And get the quarterback.
You suck. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, so you didn't help Shane, but he's thinking for me, and he's thinking from my perspective, and that's it. You know, I could use the wide receivers, I really could. But I need the quarterbacks, and that's what I'm looking at. Because the 104, I will probably get a Let's say I really think that there are 4 first-round quarterbacks right now in this class, at least 4 that probably should go. And so even if they went 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd still have a shot at getting one of those guys. And it's not going to be Anthony Richardson. So I might trade it at that point, Shane, if that's the 4th guy. But I do like the other 3 to some degree. So yeah, Mike, I do need a quarterback. And I love both of those wide receivers, especially Pickens. You know that.
Yep.
But that's the easiest thing I feel like I can replace on a team. We've talked about that on the show a bunch. Like, I feel like I can replenish, my wide receiver core fine. And yeah, so but I love the offer. I think that's a hell of an offer from Shane. He came with a big boy offer.
Just looking at who's in front of you in the drafting. The drafting, is that what you call it?
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. So every one of us needs a quarterback.
Yeah.
You might be taking Will Levis there. I got
Deshaun Watson.
I got Deshaun Watson and Carson Wentz.
Which league are we talking about?
HQ6.
Yeah.
Or I might just draft Bijan and go, fuck it, Carson's going to start somewhere.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say to you. If you think that I got to write this down again. Jeremy, if you think that there are 4 quarterbacks that you're willing to take and you're sitting at number 4, you're going to get one of those 4. And even if the 3 better ones go right before you, you have the idea of getting Bijan.
He's going to end up. He's going to end up with Will Levis because it's going to be Bijan. There's no way.
Bijan's you're Bijan taking it 101. Is what you're saying.
There's 1,000% chance Bijan's going before 104, and it's probably going to be me against my better judgment. And
so then you're definitely going to get your quarterback.
102's got to be Stroud or Young, and vice versa on 3.
I want 101. I really think. I think Stroud's at the top of the class as a passer in this class, but I could be sold
if you
on
promise
one other
to draft, all right. So if you promise to draft Stroud at 101, send me the 104 plus, and I send you the 101, then we got to talk to the guys at 102 and 103 to make sure I can get Bijan.
Let's do it. I will definitely take that player if I have the 101.
Look at that. Look at that. All right. Well, let's wrap this up right there. And then if you guys want to try to make some kind of deals with the 2 and 3, who are 2 and 3?
Clay and David.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's going to be interesting.
Shane can talk to Clay.
Yeah, exactly. He can. And and we'll talk to Dave over in Aussie land.
This is going to be a very interesting draft, I guess.
Think so.
But for tonight, we're going to wrap up. Listen, check us out on all social media at Dynasty Trades HQ. Shane already talked about our Patreon, but come join our Patreon, have some fun. Even this video tonight, we're going to throw that up for our Patreons. And, tomorrow night is New Year's Eve. Jeremy, we're on camera and you're picking your nose. Tomorrow night's New Year's Eve. Please, everybody, be safe and have a good time. And good luck in your fantasy bowls. Hope you guys win. Even though Shane's going to do his little disclaimer. So
unless you're playing against us, I hope you win.
Yeah, if you're playing against us, I hope you get fucking destroyed.
that was the disclaimer I was expecting. So, all right, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Say goodbye,
next
Shane.
week. Thanks for listening.
Say goodbye, Shane.
Goodbye, Shane.
All right.